Hey friends, welcome to Shigaraki. So today we are gonna see, what if Deku mastered the forbidden quirk? So before we start, check out my Patreon page for 18+ exclusive mature content. We will now proceed to the video. Please stop it, Ka-chan, the green-haired boy shouted, desperation in his tears as he stood between the explosive demon, in the form of a child, and the battered kid behind him, scorched all over from the demon's strength. If you continue doing this, I'll never forgive you. The demon of blonde hair clasped his fist into his palm, crackling with sparks as a malicious grin spread across his face. And what can you do, Deku? You don't even have a quirk. The cruel figure stepped forward, readying his hand for a blast to his face, palm already charged with a vermilion glow, sparks spraying off its surface as the grin became even wider still. In all over the world, abilities had manifested among children, with 80% of the population already having this unknown power called a quirk. Quirks appear at age 4, either emitter or metaphysical augmentation of the body. Heroes became a feasible and popular occupation, resulting in heroes across the globe having all forms of abilities to fight crime. But however, quirks had also for the potential of evil, aiding crime all the same. Today was of no different for Izuku Midoriya, also called Deku for the meaning of useless. In all his class, he had not even manifested a quirk, let alone able to stand against one of the more powerful and rancorous quirk users in his class, Katsuki Bakugo, also known as Ka-chan. Izuku knew it was hopeless, useless even to stand up to this inhuman spiky-haired blonde, but he did so all the same. Was it because of fear, hate, determination, justice? He did not know. Look, you made him cry. I won't let you do so any further, Izuku stuttered, tears of dread pooling from his eyes. Still, he steeled himself for the incinerating blast, his eyes wrought with determination. He knew what was going to happen. Again, he was going to be beat up. Time and time again, he reached home, with singed skin and scorched shirt. Look who's talking, Deku. Sparks shot out the aggressor's hand as yellow and white of explosions launched from its master. Izuku's recollections of his mother, bawling her eyes out every night, came to mind. He only wanted her to say he could be a hero, yet he failed all expectations. He failed to stand up against the wrong. He could never be a hero. He could never use his quirk. He could only endure. Plumes of fiery desolation tore his world into darkness. An explosion shattered the serenity of the morning horizon, smoke billowing from the cityscape. Another hero? Another villain? That matters not. Izuku Midoriya had to watch it. The blur of green rushed down the street, passing through the eventual buildup of people and finally reaching the scene. Pushing and weaving through the crowd with one hand and his other excitedly scrambling for his quirk notebook, a rumbling roar shook the grounds. Atop the Tatooine station stood a muscular and monstrous figure, a snout of a face and boulders for hands, ending with a claw on each appendage of a finger. As the crowd amassed, so did the number of heroes. What happened? A thief stole a bag and went out of control when he was cornered. A quirk like that, and he's a bag snatcher? Looks like a B-class villain to me. A rumble once again was released from its snout, eyes burning with hate, as it swiped across the cable tower, seemingly melting through it like butter. The crowd looked on as the tension built up while the half-torn debris fell tauntingly onto the black road below. Who was going to stop it? Who can save them? A dark flash of dark colors echoed heavy steps across the scene, stopping just below the sight of the falling wrangled metal. Hey, that's Death Arms, the B-class hero. The man stood tall and bulky, encased in a dark blue-green costume that exposed his well-trained chest and toned stomach while emphasizing on his large arms, which ended with his large palms atop a thick ring of yellow and black that looked like a cordon tape. Not sure what it was for though, except for aesthetic value, considering there's another similar design on his forehead and as his belt. With steel-hard face, he raised his arms to bear the brunt of the weight, bending his knees in the process as the mass of mangled steel weighed down upon his body as if it was a backpack on a schoolboy. Cheers erupted from the crowd as the iron mass was lowered slowly onto the ground. Izuku's smile widened still as he silently egged on for the hero present. Footsteps drumrolled from the back, and a streak of brown rocketed through the air above the crowd. It's Kamui Woods. The A-class hero. The figure clad in wood-like armor leapt and soared through the vicinity on buildings and structures and onto the top of the station. Kamui. You can do it, several females chanted in unison for their idol of a hero. Stay back, citizens. This is dangerous. A long aqueous barricade extended from a yellow coat, with spigots for hands and hoses for arms, and a mask featuring a single red eye. The B-rank rescue specialist, Backdraft, is here. Izuku furiously jotted down into his notebook in hand, taking in everything happening at the front lines. The monster's furious eyes landed upon the wooden man, swinging a paw towards the oversized wooden toy figurine as Kamui bounced gracefully away from his certain death, with crushed debris being where Kamui was a fraction of a second ago. Stand down, you lump of evil. You have been charged for unlawful use of Quirk during commuting hours, as well as battery and robbery. Here is your punishment. The wooden man's right arm twisted and crept and grew into a gnarly mass, brown branches coiling and turning and extending until lacquer prison. His left arm supporting his right, which is coiling with pure force, knees bent and ready for the recoil. The tree of an arm propelled forwards, spiraling and stretching towards its target with wild abandon. Branches rocketed forward with snapping speed, threatening to entangle the monster almost within its grasp. Canyon Cannon. A purple giant of a woman materialized from the side ground, her foot colliding with the face of the monster, thrusting it into the air before it smashed into the nearby building. A breeze billowed from the impact, almost sending Izuku's notebook flying out of his hands, to his chagrin, and to Kamui's as well. Come on class. You're middle school seniors. It's time you all start thinking seriously about your futures. The teacher was an aging man with a raspy voice, and was almost unable to manage this class that was chock full of happenings. Especially with Katsuki. Izuku, uninterested, at his desk, in his uniform, obviously, scribbled furiously into his notebook about the possibilities of the quirks observed earlier. A slam from a desk made his heart skip a beat and turned his head up instinctively. I'll be handing out printouts for your desired life course. You all want to be heroes, don't you all? An overwhelming cheer erupted from the class, with quirks of all shapes, sizes and effects activated for display, with spirits higher by the moment. Yes, your quirks are all wonderful, but don't forget it's against the school rules to use them in class. Exasperated, the man with graying hair shook his head. Izuku's mind was still elsewhere within his theories. Teacher, don't lump me in with these extras. Katsuki stood up, devilish grin on his face, with an air of arrogance encircling him, and with condescending eyes, stared down at his classmates. You can't compare mine with these rabbles. Mine's a whole new level. This, obviously, got another overwhelming response from the class. You've got a big mouth, Katsuki. Oh yeah, I've forgotten. Bakugo's aiming for Ua High, isn't he? Yet another overwhelming response emerged from the class. Not so good. You mean the most hyper-competitive academy to get in? The one with extremely high cutoff points and requirements? Yeah, that National Lou buried his face into his arms and let out a yawn. Well, I got an A for my mock entrance examinations, so I'm the only one in this school that has a chance, peons. Katsuki was now on top of his table, pride oozing and flowing out from his entire existence. I'm gonna be the top S-class hero and surpass All Might. Now that you mention it, isn't Midoriya also aiming for Ua? The old man rambled. Silence reigned as the class fixated upon Izuku. I mean, there's not such prerequisite or something. Tension began to accumulate such that it became unsettling, even to Izuku. Goosebumps slowly found their way up his back. And what can you do, Deku? The class stared down upon the one they called quirkless. He felt himself shrink under their cold stares. Shivers felt their way up his spine as the oppressive gloom and reality set down upon him, crushing his ideals. Looming over him was the unfeeling truth that everyone knew. Why can't I? Why everyone but me? Why is everyone allowed but me? Why? The bell signaling the end of school shattered the ice built up over the entire class, with chatter and laughter warming up the atmosphere once again. Izuku just wanted it to stop, but he could not, because he did not have the power to. He did not have the strength to. He slumped back onto his desk, before a heart-stopping slam on his table jolted him upright. What can you do, Deku? Forget even going to UA, you don't even have a quirk. Flares erupted from the blonde's palm, sending a shower of energy right into his face, sending his back onto the wall as Izuku yelped in pain. The demon turned his back around, seemingly lost interest in him. Izuku painstakingly propped himself upwards onto his feet, sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. And what's this, Deku? Hey, that's mine, give it. A torrent of furious blasts from the hand tore it apart. Endure. Endure. You see, I'm a perfectionist. I want to keep the UA graduate gravitas at the same level you see. Endure. So what I'm saying is, forget about UA, little nerd. Endure. If you really want to be a hero, there is a good way to. Just take a dive down the rooftop and hope that you get a quirk in your next life. Something snapped within Izuku. Heat rising from his body and distorting his vision, he felt numb. Eyes burning with intense hatred, he shot a look against Katsuki and his lackeys. A gaze burning with pure malice. You know, I really despise you. He felt his body tensing up, his mind clouding with fire, fists clenching harder and harder. A smaller Katsuki laughed as he ran through the woods, followed by others with the same interest, including Izuku. Jumping over branches and bursting through the foliage, they reached a creek. This is my hero agency. Balancing precariously, the four crossed over the creek on the log that led through it. Why is this coming to me now? The heat dissipated, leaving only the cold warmth in its place. He could not bring himself to. He could not. Eyes downcast with his vision blurred with the gravity of the situation, he had tried to kill his friend. Wetness streamed down his face, unexplainable emptiness filling the space between them. Can't talk back again. That's not it, Kachan. Izuku trudged through the cityscape, the heat of the sun beating down on him. I've promised myself, haven't I? Then there's no reason to listen to him. Fist clenched in determination, he stomped into the dark of the tunnel ahead. Now just put on a brave smile, and, ha 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 ha. The exaggerated laugh echoed through the shadows of the tunnel, reassuring him from within. Sunlight streamed into the tunnel behind him. Sunlight faded into the tunnel behind him. Sunlight did not enter the tunnel behind him. The obfuscating darkness of the tunnel crept its way to Izuku. What a nice disguise to escape the town in. A voice chilled the dank atmosphere of the tunnel, sending shivers up his spine. Turning around, an amorphous mass of flowing dirty green faded into view, emitting the little sunlight that gave the tunnel the disgusting green glow. Eyes widening in horror, Izuku fell backwards, away from the ominous, dripping goo with eyes and luminescent despicable teeth. Thick tendrils shot out towards Izuku, sticking onto him, wrapping him, dragging his watery demise flowing towards him, enveloping him within a fraction of a second, drowning him within its embrace of agony as liquid poured down his throat. Heart hammering to a stop, he felt the familiar sense of burning within his body. His body tensed with anticipation, his eyes burned a crimson red. With his skin tingling with scorching death, his mind ignited a fire within him. Fear not, young citizen, for I am here. The declaration boomed throughout the endless depths of the tunnel, dispelling the curse of tension and doubt. All Might. The man towered over even the most muscular humans, with inhuman tones of rippling muscles throughout his shirt-covered upper body. His face in a dauntless wide smile, his hair slicked back and protruded with his two signature thunderbolts. All Might, the number one S-class hero. The hulk of a man drew back his fist and adopted a stance. With power shimmering from his fist, small stones started to levitate around him. His fingers clenched tight, the gravity of the force imminent within the charging of the nuclear blow, until his existence blasted forwards at breakneck speed, seemingly teleporting towards the sludge. The eyes of the monster widened with terror. Texas smash. The fist collided with the air downwards, the punch's sheer force and power pressuring it and sending it propelling forwards, creating a torrent of gusts blowing through the tunnel. The ooze was torn away through the blade of wind from Izuku, scattered into globules and shredded them into droplets. Choking for air, Izuku realized the magnitude of the situation. The number one hero, All Might, had saved him. You okay, kid? Why yeah. Thanks to you, I have the villain captured in this bottle. All Might walked out of the tunnel, with Izuku tagging behind, eyes lit up in admiration. Oh yeah, your autograph, have no fear, kid, it's already inside. Eyes widening in surprise and gratefulness, Izuku bowed down, profusely thanking him for his family heirloom. Well, now I'm off to deliver this villain to the authorities. The next time we meet, it'll be through a TV screen. Wait, you can't stay? Pros must always battle with villains in time. Now then, be sure to keep. All Might bent down to a squatting position, power rising and escaping into the air around him, sheer energy rumbling the ground and vibrating the air around his bulk. Cheering me on, with the ground cracking and forceful winds blowing from where the hero once stood, a streak of yellow rocketed into the sky, high above the city. What the? All Might's dark shadows for eyes widened at the sight of the imp of a man clinging onto the side of his ripped as FCK calf. Izuku almost opened his mouth to answer the huge man's curiosity, but knew that speaking would be ineffective while flying as air would just flap his cheeks around. Fine, I'll answer your questions when we land. A hacking cough ensued All Might's reply to Izuku's silence, shit. The duo landed with a boom on a middle-rise block, the shock from the impact absorbed by the knees of the larger man. So what was your question? Hurry, I don't have much time. Hopefulness and longing welled up within Izuku. His body bowed downwards, his eyes filled with anxiety. Can someone without a quirk be a hero like you? A bolt of pain surged through the body of All Might. His time was up. I may not a quirk, but can I be as strong as you? The man shrank and shrank, steam sizzling out of his body to the air surrounding him. White smog burned from his body, turning the large man into a surprisingly scrawny one. Can I save people like you with a fearless smile? Looking up, Izuku saw the shock of his life. All Might was a stick man? It could not be. All Might saved people with a smile, not with a sickly face. Listen up, kid. I am Altic man's mouth came blood after vigorous coughing, but how? I don't have time to explain. The thin figure in his now oversized clothes slumped down onto the ground against a wall, wincing in the process. Saving people with a fearless smile, huh? Since you've already seen my true form, just don't post this on the internet or whatever. This is a wound a villain gave me 5 years ago, took out one of my lungs and my entire stomach. The yellow-haired man lifted up his shirt to reveal a grotesque scar extending for the entirety of his left chest. Izuku was rooted in shock, his mouth agape. I've wasted away from countless medical treatments and my All Might form is now limited to 3 hours a day. It can't be. This is All Might, isn't it? There's no way. The symbol of peace must never succumb to the forces of evil. The reason why I laugh is to distract myself from the fear and pressure within me. Pros are always risking their lives on the line. I can't bring myself to tell you can do it even without a quirk. Izuku's head sank with crushed dreams, the weight of his grief pushing down upon his shoulders. You can go join the police force to assist villain capturing. That too is worthy of praise. Izuku's heart was burdened with disappointment. Cold reality was set in the void in his heart, replacing the admiration he had for the greatest hero of all time. The stick figure propped himself up slowly, shambling painfully into the building. You need to see reality for what it is, kid. Izuku shuffled through the streets towards the source of explosion, which in normal cases, would shock his entirety and excite him. But this time, it did not interest his wrenched heart so much. Shoulders slumped and burdened with crushed aspirations, he continued to the site of happening through muscle memory. I should really stop doing this to get my hopes up and escape reality. After all, I can never be a hero. Before he knew it, the scene emerged like a new page. Crowds of the masses grouped in front of the scene, several flashes of bright colors moving back and forth the enclosed area. Noise began to filter at the prospect of not being able to be a hero, with Izuku's mood falling lower with each passing moment. In its center was the familiar disgustingly green blob, lashing out in the broken piece of city, fire spread all around. The desolate ragged circle around it was in ruins, debris lying everywhere, street lamps strewn over the cracked road. Somehow, the blaze that lined the area was caused by the sludge thing and something in it. Explosions shattered the surrounding debris as the slime flailed on. Izuku dripped through the onlookers slowly to the front, seemingly horrified by the situation. The heroes were unable to combat it effectively. Pathetic. Izuku's hands clasped around his mouth as his eyes teared in sympathy for the blonde victim. His knees started to shake as his arms trembled. Pathetic. The sludge thrashed around, thick tendrils lashing out, causing the advancing heroes to fall back. Pathetic. I can't get close to them. I'm sorry. Someone will save you for sure. The villain has a hostage. We can't engage. Pathetic. You say run starts here asterisk. All we can do is to wait for someone for a more suitable quirk. Helplessness and fear for the victim pounded within his chest as he looked onto the all too recognizable spiky hair, eyes shining with terror and helpless. With adrenaline and fear coursing through his veins, strength from trepidation welled up within his legs, casting him forward into the fray. Fire and rubble blurring past, Izuku dashed forwards from the masses towards Katsuki. Stop. This is dangerous. Izuku pressed forward, droplets of fear streaming down his face. His mind raced with flashes of memories as he neared the dirty green mess. I'm so sorry, Izuku. Tears streamed down the green-haired mother as she held Izuku tightly in her embrace. Cries of regret filled the room as a small Izuku stared wide eyes into nothingness. I'm sorry. Izuku twisted his body and flung his bag, sending it towards the monster's eyes. Upon contact, the sludge gurgled in what seemed to be pain. The Katsuki Hero Agency marched onwards onto the tree trunk, cheerily. Desperate hands clawed at the sludge, attempting to free Katsuki, his once childhood friend, from his certain demise, to no effect. The sludge just flowed back to where it was displaced. A splash was heard as their leader fell into the creek below. Deku. What are you doing here? Izuku immediately slid down the slope leading to the creek, with concern in his eyes, a hand outstretched to Katsuki. You looked like you needed help. Izuku, distraught over the prospect of losing his Kachan, clawed at the sludge faster. I don't want pity from others or their apologies. Don't get into my way, kid, I'm almost done. I just want to be a hero. The sludge gurgled again, seemingly having regained its sight as it lashed out a dirty green tentacle arching towards Izuku's left. I won't let you get Kachan. A cloud of smoke erupted from the road-smashing force of the blow as the crowd looked on, with gaping mouths. However, half the sludge mass on the other side of the failed attempt of the attack could only be seen when the now orange glowing dust cleared quickly from the winds that blew from within. Izuku's eyes flaring, his messy hair now sparking into vermilion flames, a cape of fiery showers adorned upon his shoulders. Tongues of fire encircled him in a ring as the air shimmered from the heat. Fire emanated and crackled with strength around his hands. Veins of fire formed swirling patterns around his exposed skin, trailing from his hands to arms, snaking up the black uniform jacket. Flickers of emerald flame rose from the ground around him, ashes flying in the wind. I really am pathetic, not putting the words I say into practice. A yellow bolt fell from above, in front of Izuku, sending ripples into the ground and debris around upwards, followed by billowing winds as what was left of the green mass began to be shredded. The astral fire streamed within the wind, sending sparks gliding with it. Pros are always risking their lives in battle. The huge back of a man straightened while a stance was formed. Detroit. Winds seemed to gather around the massive fist as it was pulled back, unmatched power accumulating within his fist that could be felt even from a distance. Smash! The fist hammered downwards, releasing the unrestrained power within, sending billowing winds blowing, ripping the goo away from absolutely shocked Katsuki. Izuku's world became heavy and dimmed into darkness as the crowd erupted into cheers. A white, sterile hospital room came into clear view from the darkness of Izuku's exhaustion. Orange sunlight streamed in from the left window in the ward and onto his blankets. Looking around, a large bulky man came into view. It was not All Might. The man wore a neatly pressed black suit with impeccably shining shoes. His hair was crimson red, so was his mustache and beard. He noticed Izuku wake up. Dread pooled in Izuku's guts as a frown found a way to his face. His father was here. Ever since Izuku's birth, Enji Todoroki, or better known as Endeavor, had left his mother and him in pursuit of an endless dream to reach number 1 in the S-class rankings, since the arrival of All Might. All Might's appearance had broken him beyond redemption such that all he sought was power. He remembered the countless nights his mother cried because of the whole endeavor left in her heart. He remembered the countless times the large man had harshly treated her and warned her that Izuku should never use his quirk. He remembered the countless times Endeavor had shouted and beat him when Izuku could not live up to his expectations, during Endeavor's attempts at training him. Until he just left for good. When he found a better Izuku, he hated this man, he really did. He hated him for all he had done to him and his mother. Haven't I told you to never use my quirk in public? Endeavor's voice was of cold fury, uncaring, angry. You need to not why name. For the sludge billion incident, you couldn't even fight properly, yet you still want to be a hero, Deku. Endeavor was unflinching, blunt and direct, he did not mince words. Izuku remained silent, staring intently at the larger man at his side. Resentment rose within the atmosphere. The feeling of hate towards each other was suffocating. I believe I've already told you I have created a perfect replacement for you. You are nothing but inferior, Izuku. Despise burned towards the red-haired man. His body tensed up as he retorted without thinking. Then I will surpass him. I will become the number 1 hero, without your help. Izuku grit his teeth as regret set in from what he had just spat out. Endeavor let out a chilling chuckle as he raised an eyebrow to doubt Izuku's abilities. I doubt it, but when you fail, you know the consequences. Well, I can't have my reputation tarnished. I hope you understand, Izuku. Endeavor then got up from his seat and turned to leave. As he was turning the doorknob, the door itself moved forwards, revealing a much smaller yellow-haired man in a suit that seemed like he was about to collapse any moment. Excuse me. Endeavor glared ice at the scrawny man before he passed by and left, leaving the smaller man with Izuku. All Might, real name Toshinori Yagi, sat down beside Izuku. Izuku's recollection of All Might's lecture flashed through his brain, resentment turning into crushing disappointment in himself. He looked away from his idol in shame. You have been here for a few hours, and it would be a few hours before you can leave. Izuku remained silent, head looking downwards. I'm sorry for earlier, kid. Izuku looked upwards at the hearing of this sentence in surprise. I see why you told me you had no quirk, and why you were afraid to use it. Wide-eyed, Izuku looked onto the zombie-like man that looked like he was almost smiling. If it weren't for you, I would have never had the courage to transform and defeat the villain for you. I could have defeated. Izuku's mother's tears streamed down as she hugged Izuku, protecting his battered body from the fiery temper of Endeavor behind. You were exhausted and drained of energy from the sludge villain attack, and we both know it. Not many can withstand being choked in sludge and maintaining strength, kid. Get up, Izuku. This is not over until you do this right. But still, you ran ahead when nobody dared to, risking your life, both under the sludge monster and Endeavor himself. I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm sorry. All great heroes start with one mindset when facing danger. My legs moved before I was able to think. This is one quality you have, Izuku. Izuku shuddered as the large man stepped closer still. I believe you have the strength and beliefs to become my successor. What? My quirk is called One for All. It allows for the storing and stockpile of power and enables users to pass on this power onto the next. Do you want to be my successor? I believe that you can be the next symbol of peace. Izuku's eyes widened as he knew what was in store for him. His vision started to blur with wet warmth at the new chance bestowed onto him. A chance to surpass Endeavor in his superior subject. Yes. Izuku, tears of hope were streaming down his face, his heart finally unburdened with the crushing grief. Wiping his tears onto his sleeve, he looked onto the yellow-haired hero, eyes yet brimming again. What's your name? That's not it, Mom. It's Izuku Midoriya. The words I wanted you to say was, Midoriya, you can become a hero. Trudging forward with sweat pouring and aching muscles that pained with every step, he pressed on with the refrigerator on his back. You are nothing but inferior, Izuku. Dauntless, he continued carrying it up the pile, excruciating pain running through his body. With each step came a new iron will to continue. Forget about Ua, Deku. Another step. Izuku clenched his teeth as he took yet another. I'm sorry, Izuku, he took one final step upwards. Midoriya, you can be a hero. Out of his mouth came a guttural and primal scream as he let down the wasted steel with a crunch onto the top of the pile of more waste material. In the fading orange light, the silhouette of a boy on a crude hill appealed to Toshinori like no other. He had finished the training faster than expected, taking 9 months instead of the expected 10. The coast was now clear of its wrangled mess, pristine sand now glittering in the disappearing sun. Oh my! Toshinori's body regained its muscular mass, his strings for muscles thickening and solidifying into pillars, his height increasing dramatically, and his face transforming into his iconic smile, with his hair slicked back alongside his 2 symbolic thunderbolts. Goodness! Izuku turned to the welcome voice weakly, his mind and body already losing strength and will. The world turned into absolute darkness as he fell silently in the air. He found himself in his clouds of blankets and pillows when he woke up again, clean and dressed, the morning sun streaming into the room. Chatter could be heard filtering into his room, voices familiar but words unclear. Rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, he let curiosity lead him out of his reluctance to stay in bed, creaking open the door to the living room. Peeking through the gap, he saw All Might in his smaller form sitting alongside his mother, talking excitedly. Upon his appearance, both of them turned towards him. Hello Midoriya. Good work with my American dream plan by the way. You've done it good, and look where you have grown. It was true. My body had gained a large amount of muscle mass within the relatively short span of 9 months. I have already spoken to your mother about being my successor, she has agreed to it, and believes you can take on the mantle as the next symbol of peace. Inko, with stoic determination in her smile and resolve in her tears, nodded towards Izuku. I want to see how you can surpass that stupid man's expectations and defeat your superior. Izuku smiled towards them, steely willpower forming within his heart. He was ready to train to become the next symbol of peace, under All Might. Warm rays bathed the pavement as Izuku literally bounced on the road to Uahai. A smile found its way onto his face as excitement bubbled within him, along with the hopes and dreams of those who believed in him. Skipping his way towards the breathtakingly massive building, he felt that nothing could stop him now from reaching his goal. When I get in, I'm gonna do my best for All Might. Aren't you the fireboy from the sludge incident? His heart skipped a beat as he whirled around to see a round-faced girl. Shoulder-length hair and big round eyes only made her look cuter. Yeah, it is you. Izuku felt his face heating up as he stuttered. Huh? Oh yeah. The round-faced girl moved uncomfortably closer, eyes sparkling with admiration. You were so cool. Izuku felt his face growing hotter still every second as he looked away from the girl. Thanks. Well, I can see why you are aiming for Ua, so let's both try our best and get in. Good luck. Good luck to you too. There are people who admire me. Exuding confidence, he rushed forwards into the building, feeling the wind swooshing in his ears, arriving at the hall early, almost getting lost but guided in the process within the labyrinth of a building. Minutes ticked away excruciatingly slowly as students of all schools, shapes and quirks filled up the room. The briefing soon began, the lights darkening to blackness as a spotlight shone on a man with most notably a mohawk and sunglasses. An odd contraption rested around his neck. What a weirdo. That's Present Mike, an A-class hero, he's teaching here too. Welcome one and all to my live show. His voice was high-pitched, slightly squeaky, but very loud such that it echoed and reverberated through the entire hall, vibrating even the seats. Everyone say hey. A resounding silence ensued in reply. Undaunted, Present Mike continued on his pedestal, marked with the symbol of the school. Got shivers down my spine two examinees. So let's begin with the briefing. Deathly silence echoed around the room. It wasn't long before Izuku realized Katsuki was sitting beside him in the darkness of the hall. He wanted to get into Ua too, didn't he? Get ready Deku. I will crush you as well. Don't think I'm afraid of you, Deku. Katsuki continued looking at Present Mike without turning his head at Izuku. Don't think because our families have good relations now that I'll give you chance, Deku. Katsuki now looked right into Izuku's eyes. It wasn't a look of hate, but a stare of determination. I'll catch up to you. And defeat you. The city replica called Area A came into view, its sheer size just overwhelming. This might as well be a town. Throngs of students and competitors gathered around the looming closed gateway, each seeming to be ready for the test. The atmosphere was tense, murmurs and gazes directed towards him from everywhere. It made him uncomfortable. Eyes sweeping around for anyone he might know, the familiar bob-cut brown hair and round face came into view. She's here too, I need to wish her good. His movement was abruptly halted by a firm grip settling onto his shoulder. Turning around, the nerd guy who kept asking questions during the briefing stopped in his line of sight. I know that you may be powerful, but please don't take out the competition by distracting others before the examination. What? Having said this, the signal for the start of the test began through Present Mike's announcement, the huge doors lumbering open. What are you all waiting for? Go, 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 it has already started. The crowd charged into the gateway like a herd, pushing over one another, unruly and uncivilized. Izuku tensed up his body, willing and controlling and suppressing the power of One for All throughout his being simultaneously. Veins of green energy spread over his limbs as he felt his muscles expanding slightly. His body suddenly lighter, he sprinted forwards, careful not to tip over the precipice to exceed 5% of One for All. Don't break. Don't break. Don't break. Yes, All Might is a better teacher in this world. The cityscape blurred past as he scanned the vicinity for the robots. A loud crash blasted from a shop on his left as smoke and a metallic construct zoomed towards him. A three-pointer. He felt the familiar warmth tingling his right foot as he channeled his heat into it. His foot now igniting with fire burning red-orange to green, he swung a blazing kick, feeling the strength of One for All running through his body, turning his other foot to support his momentum as the foot rippled through the construct, sending a stream of a fiery trail of sparking and crackling fire in a circle around him. The construct was obliterated to smoldering steel from the infernal roundhouse itself, he observed as the burning foot landed with perfect balance. Don't break. Don't break. As the heat subsided from his foot and fire reduced to embers which then faded to nothing, he continued dashing through the mock city, hunting for more victims to fall from his fiery blows. His fist crackling with bolts of green electricity and emerald fire blazing streaming around it, he let loose destruction onto another robot. That makes 23 points. Dusting his hands, he continued on his search, strengthened by One for All supporting his movements. 3 minutes left. I've gotta rack up more points fast, some people keep stealing my bots. A loud robotic buzzing surrounded Izuku as a multitude of robot types encircled him menacingly, eyes red and dead, closing the distance every second. More points. Izuku charged his body with crackling power, strength surging through them as he lurched forwards towards a bot, igniting his right fist and swinging it through a two-pointer, both quirks blasting it to rubble. Spotting several more in his peripheral vision, he ignited his other fist and cooled the other, whirling his body anti-clockwise and shifting his foot stance, whipping through another two-pointer, sending shreds of fire flowing behind as he readied a foot to strike a one-pointer on his front. His right foot sparking to emerald flames as his fist cooled down, he lashed out towards the robot, sending his foot burning through the sad scrap as the flame burned through in a roundhouse kick. Readying another stance, traversing towards him were 3 robots. 2 of them were 3-pointers and 1 was a 1-pointer. Stretching out his right palm that smoldered into green fire, with veins of green power extending throughout his arm, energy from the air gathered around his hand. With a shout, he sent it down to slam the ground, sending cracks in the black asphalt racing under the robots. Pillars of fire rose and shot out of the cracks and from its origin towards the robots, blasting and incinerating them to smoking ashes, all in one fluid movement. Adrenaline fueling his rampage, he smited down the last remaining bots with deadly grace, fire now seething from his shoulders as his heart beat faster and faster. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Taking in deep breaths, the blaze upon his shoulders reduced to nothing as his heart rate slowed down gradually. Turning around to look at his victims, incinerated and lying on the floor, he rested for a moment. Well, that makes 39 points. I wonder how Kachan is doing. Looking at the now desolate cityscape, he maintained the flowing energy through his body, rushing forwards in search of more bots to destroy, within the cacophony of explosions and crashes elsewhere within the city. His eyes scrying the area, his limbs moving fast. One more minute until the end. Panic and anxiety hammered in his chest as he bolted through the city to find only metal corpses, or other Quirk users battling the constructs. We've raked in the bumper crop this year. I've gotta search for more points. However, the thing to really bring out who they are truly. The earth rumbled and quaked as a loud drone filled the air. Plates upon plates of metal filled the vast open air as its shadow covered buildings and structures. With huge lifeless, cold eyes, it stared down upon the panicking students as if with contempt, its massive steel hands crumbling the buildings it gripped upon them, as if to support its weight. The skies shuddered as it rose to its full height, towering over the world, cold darkness quickly falling upon the area. As this mayhem broke out in the area as throngs and throngs of students fled, legs fueled with trepidation, fear pounding within their chests, eyes wide with horror, mouths agape as they saw the looming threat and presence filling the skies. Shouting and screaming resonated and blended into a mix of terror and confusion within the area as the zero-pointer tottered forwards towards the examinees, shaking the earth and tearing apart the concrete buildings below it. That's the gimmick that would rampage when crowded. That's just ridiculous. Heart pounding in his ears, Izuku tripped and fell backwards in the shadow of the destroyer. Clambering backwards, driven by oppressive fear, Izuku stared upwards at the beast of a machine in dread and apprehension. With a creak, the robot slowly lifted a massive arm, bringing its gargantuan weight crashing through structures, blasting pieces of huge concrete and debris to the air, showering the area with chunks of deadly meteors, cracking building and demolishing road surfaces as they fell. Cold sweat broke out as Izuku felt himself paralyzed by the intimidating crimson blaring eyes, rooted in his position with a face of horror as his heart thumped louder in his head. Numbness filled his body as fearful tears shed down his cheeks, as the prospect of imminent death and disappointment rumbled closer towards him. If I don't move, everything All Might gave me would go to waste. Panic continued seizing his body as his doom growled closer than ever before, casting its cruel gaze upon Izuku. I need to rack up more points elsewhere. Izuku's eyes turned towards the source, falling upon the round-faced girl trapped in fallen rubble, dust billowing from behind. Fear reflectee, she scrambled at the great debris frantically, unable to free herself from her fate. Desperate hands clawed at the sludge, attempting to free Katsuki, his once childhood friend, from his certain demise, to no effect. The sludge just flowed back to where it was displaced. Scenes of the sludge incident bolted through his mind again and again, sending shivers up his spine. Deku. What are you doing here? In a trance-like state, courage amidst the terror rose within him, strengthening his limbs, bringing life back into them as he stood up. The fear in his eyes were replaced with a look of strength, a look of a hero. His fist clenched involuntarily as his trembling stopped, newfound steely determination hardening his gaze. You looked like you needed help. His hair burst into viridian flames as flames erupted from his shoulders, ribbons of flares gracefully arching and circling his body. His body crackled with green lightning as veins of energy spread across his body, accompanying the fiery swirls engraving into his skin. Air gathered to his being. An inferno blazed from the ground around him as he bent his knees. With power surpassing human limits rose within him, particles of rocks began to levitate from the ground around him. The fiery missile shot upwards towards the gargantuan construct, sending waves of air blasting away from the launch area, the solid bitumen breaking and burning and cracking under the sheer force of one for all 100% in hellfire. Shock waves erupted outwards in a circle, further smashing the road to bits. A kid who's got the resolve to sacrifice himself has appeared. As Izuku propelled himself towards the robot with streams of fire circling him, he pulled back his fist, sheer strength rippling through his arm, ripping his tracksuit to burning threads, green electric bolts sparking around his arm with familiar crackling heat blazing from his fist. When things go bad, when you have to use 100% of my quirk on a limb, clench your butt muscles as hard as you can, and shout. Smash, from the bottom of your heart. With the mechanical terror finally in range, Izuku let loose his fiery desolation. Smash! With tremendous force, the head of the giant caved in, incinerated and mangled from the immense metal with the full force, green-tinged inferno of strength and fire. A crater forming in the power of the punch, flares and ashes dancing in the gust from the impact as shock waves rippled from its face throughout its body, disrupting its functions and sending showers of sparks from its body. The behemoth crumbled and fell, red eyes fading to black as parts and pieces peeled off its facade, metal raining down onto the area behind it as dull crashes of collisions between the types of debris sent dust clouds raising and floating from the ground. The students below had stopped running, now turning to the crashes as the very large robot falling, looking on in surprise as a small figure fell from its height. Mouths agape, fear no longer coursed through their veins, but rather, surprise and admiration, as silence apart from the falling robot reigned in the atmosphere. Loud cheers slowly filled the air as their savior fell, as warm sunlight returned to shine upon their faces. Excruciating pain tore through his body as Izuku himself was blown away from his force, flames dissipating into black smoke as his right arm darkened with bruise and broken bones. His legs flapped in the wind, seemingly jelly-like, as he fell from the skies. Baring his teeth, he strengthened his resolve against the pain, enduring it to no avail as fatigue soon caught up after the adrenaline. His body became numb as darkness threatened to fill his world once again, winds screeching in his ears, eyelids heavy, colors in his vision faded into nothingness and black. I need more points. Izuku ran and ran and ran. In the wait for the results to be given out in the next month, he trained and trained. 100 push-ups, 100 squats, 100 sit-ups, and a grueling 10 kilometers run. Every day. No breaks between any of these workouts. He trained to ready his body to access a higher percentage of power of One for All in Hell Flame. He trained to gain better control over his powers. He trained to drown out his sorrows and worries of not getting enough points to qualify for UA. He continued running through the sunset, across the beach, feeling the warm tingling sand comfort his worn feet, sweat droplets of release from his anxiety dripping all over. His sore muscles and aching chest begged him to stop, but he ran on. Vision blurred from the sweat, he carried on. The weight of his goals and aspirations upon him, he carried on. Until he fell, panting fiercely and relentlessly, heart furiously smashing against his ribcage as he landed upon the soft sand he trod on, cushioning his fall, sand dusting onto his limbs. But still, he must continue. Picking himself up against his urges to stay down, his body on the verge of collapse, he started his run once again, pressing forwards. Running only through sheer willpower in the fading orange of the day, he had already gone over his limit, but still, he pressed onwards, to be a proper vessel for One for All. When he finally arrived home after the tortoise training, he came upon a letter resting upon his doorstep. A gentle breeze blew, salving some of Izuku's pains, but the letter did not fly into the cloak of the night. Painfully bending down to pick it up, he observed its features. A red seal with the letters, UA, on it screamed at him to tear it open immediately. Izuku, with newfound energy, swooshed open the door, and scrambled to Inko to spread the uncertain news, both anxiety and anticipation strangling him. Closing the door behind him, uneasiness began to creep from the recesses of his room, cold sweat now forming on his body. The envelope seemed strangely heavy. Did I make it? Can I join All Might? Plunking himself upon the chair in front of his wooden desk, he continued staring at the envelope with unquiet. Silence in the room became unbearably deafening. Oppressive quiet blasted through the room. Did I score enough points to get in? Soon, he could take it no more. Envelope within his hands, he took a last look at the taunting red seal, and tore it apart from the sides, right through the center. A black disc clattered onto the desk. Suddenly letting out a flash of colors, a projected image of his idol filled the air in front of him. Testing, 1, 2, 3, young Midoriya, I am here as a projection. The overly muscled form of All Might in a suit and tie appeared at the center of stage in the hologram, donning his signature smile of justice. Izuku's eyes widened in anticipation, nervously fidgeting within his seat. I know that you have many questions on your part, but the news is, you have not obtained the necessary points to qualify to enter UA. You have failed by 1 point. Izumi felt the entire world crushing on his shoulders. All expectations demolished, all hopes brought down, by 1 measly point. If only he was a little bit faster. If only he had worked a little bit harder. If only he had not gone for the 0-pointer, he could have. The weight of failing All Might expresses themselves through sorrowful tears that dripped longingly onto the desk, his head bowing downwards from guilt, ashamed to look at that unyielding smile that brought him up to be his successor. That mocking smile that showed no regret. Anguish for his situation clenched his teeth. But listen up, young Midoriya, this is not all. Izuku once again gathered his strength to lift his head against the fearless grin, the rebellious grin to fight all evil. Watch this clip. The projection then zoomed into the screen beside the symbol of justice who waved over to it, and a video started playing onto that screen. Excuse me. A round-faced girl with a bob cut with 2 streams of hair at the side of her face came into view, seemingly talking to a teacher, or someone in charge, of UA. It's that nice person who wished me good luck. Do you know about the boy who saved another during the sludge villain incident and had Savobot? That's me. After I had made him landed safely, when he was unconscious, he muttered about getting more points. It must have been my fatigue catching up. Could I give him some of my points? The person in charge, who was out of view of the camera, simply reached down to pat her head. There would be no need for that, young lady. The video ended there, with All Might taking the spotlight and camera screen time back. You see, you might have failed the test based on points, but which hero academia would turn down someone who has the spirit of self-sacrifice and will to be a hero? Izuku's heart began to lift. He had a chance. A new chance to prove himself. A new chance to take on the mantle to be the next symbol of peace. A new chance to surpass his better. Villian points aren't only counted for this exam. Hero points from saving people count too. And this is why the obstacle was deployed in the first place. A wetness in his eyes caused his vision to blur. Tears of hope. Tears of renewed chance. Izuku felt his heart regain its strength, a newfound determination, willpower and resolve to carry on. Sniffling his tears away, he looked onto the projection. And now, you have a total of 99 points for the exam. Of course, you also aced the written half of this test. A scoreboard was unveiled beside All Might, where the placement and scores of the top students were displayed. In the top spot was Midoriya Izuku, trumping all other contestants by wide margins. 39 villain points and 60 hero. Below his name was Katsuki, coming in second with 77 points. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief. In a good way. Never could he have imagined so. The top spot? So it is time, Midoriya. Welcome to your hero academia. Izuku stood apprehensive in front of the massive door of classroom 1A. Who would be in my class? Who's my teacher? Are there going to be nice people? Izuku continued staring intently at the door, unbudging. Clutching at his backpack, he continued his unrelenting questioning and doubting within his head. His heart started to thump within his ears as nervous sweat started to form. Within this massive school, with an intake rate of 1 in 300, a total of 36 students were accepted into the hero course by the tests alone, with another 4 getting in through recommendations from their schools. With each class holding 20 students, school life was going to be extremely competitive for everyone within the renowned hero course of UA High. Oh, it's you, the boy who blew the giant robot apart. A voice from behind jolted his thoughts away and forced his body to turn towards it. Oh, hello. It was the round-faced girl whom he had saved. What are you doing outside the class? Why not just enter? The girl wore an identical uniform to his. Gray blazer with red stripes at the edges over a white collared shirt and a red tie, albeit, obviously, with a skirt instead of long pants. She looks good in uniform. His cheeks burning, he looked away from its cause, turning towards the humongous door instead to calm himself down. Calm his nerves down. Yes I should. As he dragged the massive door open, the ruckus within immediately sent him a step backwards. "Keep your feet off the desks. You are disrespecting the school by putting your feet on the desks." The glasses guy motioned frantically with his hands and looked almost comedic in his seriousness and exasperation. His haircut was of a left parting, combed neat and trimmed fit for his nerdy personality of an exemplary student. "Well, who gives a damn about these things?" And the other guy laid back on his seat, hair blonde and rebelliously spiky, eyes red and angry, feet and shoes relaxed on the desk in front of him. His uniform was unkempt, in contrary to the neatly pressed and immaculate one of the glasses guy, with the blazer unbuttoned and tie hanging loose around his neck, his shirt jutting out from the waistline. Katsuki Bakugo. "Let's just start over. My name is Tenya Iida and I was from Somei Junior High School. I am pleased to meet your acquaintance. What's yours?" Katsuki, indifferent, snorted. "You mean the prestigious high school where all the rich people go to?" Tenya was indeed annoyed, but not before he noticed the duo standing outside the classroom. "Aren't you the boy who smashed the massive robot during the exam?" Chatter and rowdiness within the classroom immediately dissipated, all eyes now looking with curiosity and interest towards the messy green-haired boy we all know as Izuku. "Oh man, everyone is looking at me." Students of all forms started swarming around him excitedly, rapid-fire questions quickly rising into the air towards Izuku as he took a step back, unfamiliar with the new popularity he gotten. "Wow, what's your quirk? How did you do that? That was so cool." Out of the corner of his eye, a boy with his left side of his hair white and his right, red, eyes fixated unnervingly at him with his heterochromic eyes of disturbing gray and piercing green. That's his problem?" Izuku inched backwards even more as the crowd pressed on, laughing nervously and very disturbed by the red and white-haired guy until his foot knocked into something behind him on the ground with a ruffle. His heart jumped slightly. Turning around, he saw a yellow caterpillar of a man lying on the floor. "What is that?" The menagerie of quirk users turned to find the caterpillar standing up on its end, eyes dead and face uninterested. His long hair trembled and shook as the zip on the sleeping bag moved downwards, revealing a body in a black suit, neck entangled within a mass of fabric cloth which rested upon his chest. The sleeping bag slid downwards to form a yellow puddle on the floor in the corridors. "Is this someone in charge in our school? He looks like a pro." You all took about 7 seconds to keep quiet. This isn't very plausible to have in the long run. The bandage man walked into the classroom, with students parting a pathway for him under his strangely authoritative and condescending gaze. He stopped in front of a podium of sorts that was propped up at the center of the front of the class. "Good morning you all. My name is Shota Aizawa and I'll be your homeroom teacher from now on." "He's our teacher." The students warily moved back to their designated seats. Reaching under the podium, he fished out what seemed to be navy blue overalls with the letters, UA, on their front. Waving it towards the class, he started making announcements. "Put these on fast and get to the fields. So what we are gonna do this morning is have a little test to judge your physical abilities so I can teach you better." Mr. Aizawa stood lazily in front of the class gathered in front of him on the grassless fields, eyes uninterested. Izuku felt a stare digging into his back from where he was standing. Resisting the urge to turn around to see the very disturbing double-colored hair guy again and his piercing stare, he forced himself to focus on Mr. Aizawa. Seriously, what is his problem? But isn't the opening ceremony happening right now? Shouldn't we be attending it? Iida voiced out, confused and unclear of the importance of the opening ceremony to Mr. Aizawa. Eyes turned towards him and whispering broke out. "Hero training is what matters most in this school. The opening ceremonies are useless and a waste of time." The man in black continued eyeing his students lazily. They all suspiciously eyed him back. Flinging a ball towards Katsuki from a bag, he continued on with his class. "Hey Bakugo, how far could you throw a softball back in middle school?" Katsuki, catching the ball, paused to remember for a moment. 67 meters I think. Mr. Aizawa motioned and waved for Katsuki to enter a painted ring on a floor with a cone extending from the ring itself. "Now try it with your quirk. Do whatever you want, as long as you don't exit the circle." Katsuki, feeling all eyes on him, smiled ferociously, beginning to stretch his right arm by pushing it, extended horizontally, towards his chest with his left. Don't hold back. Gripping the ball, he readied his stance. Pulling back his right arm and with his left, with feet spaced apart for support, he took a step forwards from his left. Swinging his right hand vertically downwards and twisting his right body forwards for momentum, his right hand sparked and spluttered to life with yellow and orange, streaks of black smoke trailing from his palm. Die! The ball was blasted from the force of the explosion which tore into the blue of the sky, a blur of movement soaring upwards to the sky, flares scattering from their source and blown around by the small breeze created by the palm of the devil. A short while later, the ball fell from its height, blackened, to the ground, rolling about until it came to a stop. Before anything else, one must know what they are capable of. Mr. Aizawa held up a device he produced from a pocket in the direction of the throw, reading the distance to be 705.2 meters, as seen when he revealed it to the class. That is the rational metric that will form the basis of your hero foundation. Faces in awe spread amongst the crowd. By the way, for this physical test, you can use your quirks. A cheer burst out from the class, excitement filling the air with their voices. That's so cool, we were never allowed to do this in middle school, that's cool, huh? His sudden change of demeanor from one of indifference to cold rejection crashed the festive atmosphere, the class quieting down almost immediately. By the way, the person who scores last at the end of the tests will be expelled immediately. Expelled? This is really bad. Izuku nervously glanced around silently, looking at other more faces of silent anguish and then to Mr. Aizawa and his not a care in the world. Mr. Aizawa was unhesitant, relentless and unfeeling, harsh. But that's not fair at all, you can't expel us on the first day of school. The round-faced girl, Ochako, protested, her voice for justice a stark contrast to Mr. Aizawa's cold and harsh. Voices from the gathered students rang out in agreement. Think about it. Are natural disasters that happen anytime fair? Or random sudden villain attacks that occur fair? The answer is no. Heroes can't alleviate all of society's problems, they just help solve and restore society after it's been hit. By the way, due to the rules of UA High, I can teach my class as I see fit and so expulsion is not something out of the ordinary. Students. Nervous chatter and whispering in the class died down. From now on, for your next 3 years in UA, you can expect one hardship after the next. After all, here, the only easy day is gonna be yesterday. Tension arose within the crowd, the competitiveness now rising to unbearable levels. I expect all of you to overcome these challenges and climb to the top. This is plus ultra students. Mr. Aizawa leered at the students with boredom evident in his face. So basically, you will go through 7 tests. Completing each would score you points based on how well you complete them. Turning his device around, he gave the students a quick glance of what was in store for them. Softball pitch. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength test. Sustained side steps. Upper body exercises. Seated toe touch. So that was basically a demonstration for you all. These are all activities you know from middle school, but this time, you can use your quirks. The Ministry of Education had barred the use of quirks to attempt to establish equality between people with quirks and those who don't. Obviously, it didn't work. So let's begin, students. The first test was of the 50 meters dash. Iida, with what seemed like exhaust pipes on his calves, readied for the dash at the starting line. His quirk was engine, able to project energy backwards when running to significantly increase his speed. On his right was Tsuyu Asui, the girl on all fours, resembling a frog with her green hair and posture. Her quirk as frog allows her to do whatever a frog can. 3, 2, 1. Both students tensed up upon their starting lines, eyes focused on the end. Start. Iida's engine quirk blasted a stream of white smoke, propelling his running forward with increased speed. 3.06 seconds. Meanwhile, Asui was still hopping behind him, legs and hands launching her forwards like a frog, and landing with her hands then feet. 5.58 seconds. Izuku looked on in awe of the speed of Iida's engine. I wonder if one for all 10% can match that. The next two competitors, some tail man and the round-faced girl, Uraraka Ochako, readied upon their starting lines. Ochako seemed to touch her shoes and clothes before bending down to prepare herself for the 50 meters dash, while the tail man, Mishirao Ojiro, who was pale yellow all over, set his tail-like appendage on the ground behind him, flexing it such that it could launch him. Isn't the round-faced girl's quirk making something float by touching it? Izuku looked on in curiosity as some scenes of the admission test for Ua replayed in his mind. The round-faced girl jumped to her left to avoid the crash of a two-pointer's attack, then rushed forward to touch the metal plate of the robot. The robot then floated upwards to a dangerous height, flailing within the air along with its other counterparts, before slamming down onto the floor, seemingly affected by gravity once again, and smashing apart when she clasped her fingers together. Start. Ojiro louched off the ground with his tail, propelling him forwards and kicking up clouds of dust behind him repeatedly where he landed and launched repeatedly. Meanwhile Ochako ran as hard as he could, spewing little dust clouds behind. 5.13 seconds. 7.15 seconds. Ochako, panting hard, seemed pleased with her score. Soon enough, another two competitors took their place on the starting line of the track. One of them, hair yellow and face in an arrogant grin, turned backwards, his metallic belt with a blue orb at its center facing away from the track. The other, who had pink skin and hair, and black eyes and two antennae-like appendages sticking out of her hair from her head, readied herself upon the starting line. Start. The bloke known as Aoyama Yuga blasted a sparking laser from the blue orb of his belt, the force lifting him upwards above the ground, propelling him backwards as the energy beam did its work. Ashido Mina, the pink girl, instead surfed on the ground, her feet leaving sticky pink puddles and trails that dissolved the ground behind her. It's that guy who stole at least 6 points from me. However, soon after, the beam just stopped, inertia of his mass sending him tumbling to the ground, allowing Mina to bypass him as he got up, before firing his shining and glittering beam again. 5.02 seconds. 5.51 seconds. The blonde just gave a smug look at his confused classmates. What's up with him? Izuku readied upon the dash track alongside Katsuki now. Izuku's hands on the ground, supporting his weight and to complement his lift-off from his legs and one leg forward and the other back, he braced himself, feeling the adrenaline of facing his childhood friend pump his heart faster. Katsuki, on the other hand, had both arms crossed across his chest, elbows centered from his body and palms facing behind him, his face in stone and determination. I will surpass you, Deku. For now, I think I can only use one for all when running. If I use Hell Flame, I might overheat or explode. Feeling the rush and power of one for all circulating and empowering his muscles, the energy within him calmed his nerves. Strength surged through him as he tensed his body in anticipation for the start of the race. Start. Green veins of power began to spread across his body as his legs released explosive power for the sprint, his body literally flying as his legs kicked of the ground, dust clouds circling the air behind him, with winds whispering within his ears. His counterpart, instead quickly unfolded his arms, his fingers and palms locked in a claw-like position, his arms running behind as his hands charged with orange and yellow crackles and power. Following this, blasts of fire exuded from his palms rapidly, the power of the explosions sending him rocks legs running. Both neck and neck, exchanging fearsome glances at each other, crossed the finishing line. 4.12 seconds. 4.13 seconds. Katsuki sneered at him, gritting his teeth. Stomping away to the next station, he fumed. It was a small victory this time for Izuku, one that was a close shave. The next station was of grip strength. Izuku walked towards a basket full of some sort of device, obviously for measuring grip strength, a handle on it, and a piston-like thing. Underneath it, facing inwards towards the body of the device, attached to the metallic body which had a screen to display results. Don't break. Don't break. Grabbing hold of the handle, he willed all for one through his arm, feeling the warmth of his power flowing through his nerves, causing his muscles in his right arm to shudder with increased strength. Clenching and forcing his fingers and palms shut, he felt its power overflowing ever so slightly, expanding his muscles in his right arm, networks of veins of green spreading and becoming more interlocked. Crap crap crap, his fingers spasmed, his hand shaking as he forced all his willpower desperately into curbing his innate strength. His arm stilled, eliciting a sigh of relief from Izuku, his right hand now aching with the overflow. If I'm going to be a hero with this power, I gotta work at least a dozen times harder than the rest. Placing the device flat on the ground, he rubbed his right hand, relieving some of the tension within it. 156 kilograms? That's not too bad, I think. Whoa, 540 kilograms? That's insane. You're like a gorilla, or maybe an octopus. Spinning his head around to the source, he saw several students crowding around a tall student with white hair that jut out in front of his head, with a cloth acting as to mask his mouth. His 8 webbed-together muscular appendages ended with mouths, ears and hands, with 4 of them joining up together to grip and use the device. Octopus, that's hot. A much smaller student with bubbles of purple for hair said to particularly no one. What an interesting quirk. Looking beyond them, he met with a familiar icy stare. Izuku shuddered, turning away from it to focus on something else. Moving on to the next station, standing long jump, he waited on for his turn, watching his childhood adversary blast off in the air explosively with his quirk, landing far from the launch pad. Soon, it was his turn and he readied himself upon the hardened pad, knees bent and feet apart, feeling the power of One for All surging and shivering throughout his body, its warm embrace enveloping his muscles. As I noticed before, I can't properly control 10% of One for All properly. I think I'll have to settle for 8% if I want to use it with Hell Flame. A welcome tingling sensation spread across his palms and shoes, the air shimmering around them. To maximize efficiency, superheating the air behind me to propel me forwards without overexerting Hell Flame is crucial. The tingling power from his feet died down, his palms and fingers feeling the comforting heat of his quirk now. Louching off from the ground several meters into the air, he spread his arms to counterbalance his weight in the air and concentrated his heat into the center of his palm, a thin and long jet of green flame burning to orange shooting out behind him, further increasing his thrust and blurring his image through the shimmering heat. Falling from his height, shifting his center of gravity forwards and adjusting the direction of the flame boosts, he felt his right arm's heat failing, causing him to curve towards the right due to uneven thrusting power into the air. Shit, my right. Calculating quickly, shifting his right foot to maintain balance, he landed with a poof into the soft sand. 56 meters. Gotta work more on control. Dusting himself as he propped himself back onto his feet, he caught the double-colored hair guy staring at him once again. This guy needs to stop. I'll go talk to him. Hey, why do you keep staring at me? Izuku called out to the heterochromic individual, hiding the nervousness in his voice as he stepped towards him. Your name is Midoriya Izuku, isn't it? Yes. My name is Todoroki Shoto. I believe you were the kid who used my father's quirk during the Sludge Villian incident to gain popularity. Todoroki. Todoroki Enji. Izuku hated that name. He hated the man who gave him this cursed quirk. The quirk that was never his. The quirk that he could never actually master nor use to its full extent. You are just like my father, always wanting to gain popularity and strength. I am nothing like him, and for that, I will show you that this world holds no mercy for your kind. Shoto stood firm, staring into Izuku's soul with his piercing eyes and cold yet fiery stare. He had to show Endeavor that with minimal help from him, he can accomplish much. He had to show that without the full power of his, he can be a hero. He had to show them that this was unfair, in every way. I believe I've already told you I have created a perfect replacement for you. You are nothing but inferior, Izuku. Izuku's gaze darkened as he turned away from Shoto, disdain obvious on his face. Clenching his teeth, he moved on to the next station. I doubt it, but when you fail, you know the consequences. He moved on, heavy steps, seething from his father's words. I will crush you. I will fucking beat you in my superior and kill. Hey, Deku. His train of nightmarish thoughts broke, shattered by the bright and cheery voice of Ochako. He jolted up and turned to her big eyes that appeared beside him. Oh hey Uraraka. Izuku scratched his head, already forgotten about Shoto and his nasty plots. How have your tests been coming along? He saw the next station, with the kid with purple balls for hair bouncing back and forth between two stacks of his hair, the sustained sidesteps. Whoa, I think it's going on fine. Izuku nervously laughed, unsure of what to say of how to gauge. Well, I haven't completed this station, so wish me luck. Ochako run on ahead to commence the station test. She's so bubbly. Not long after, it was Izuku's turn. I think I need to use one for all to charge up my movement, while maybe Hell Flame to copy Kachan's explosion quirk. Izuku stood with knees bent on the square with outlines, the feel of one for all rushing through his body again, lightening his body and refueling his muscles. His palms lit up with a greenish glow as a rising heat rose from his hands. Start. Izuku jumped quickly, supported by the Hell Flame, explosions, viridian blasts of heat and fire rapid, legs with one for all pushing him fast, blurring from view as he moved from side to side with astonishing speed. Whoa. He just modified his quirk such that it copied the explosion guy. That's really fast. A small group of onlookers crowded around, watching Izuku. Among one of them was Katsuki, and he was not very happy. Deku. I'll kill you when I get to you. Stepping forward towards Izuku, monstrous steps and furious temper, he cursed and cursed, until a series of bandages brought him to his knees as he felt his hands losing power. Mr. Aizawa dragged him to his face, eyes glowing eerie red and hair levitating upwards, flowing in the air. Do not disrupt students taking the test, is that clear? Katsuki looked away as the bandages released him, Mr. Aizawa's hair returning back to normal, covering his face. 89 within 1 minute. Izuku slowed down, glanced towards Katsuki sheepishly, before moving towards the next station. Legs already sore and palms singed, sweat dripping from his head and soaking his attire. Sorry Kachan. He arrived just in time to see Ochako tossing the ball into the air, with it moving indefinitely upwards until it simply vanished. Mr. Aizawa revealed a score of infinity to her. The class looked on with wonder. Midoriya, it's your turn. He caught a softball tossed from Mr. Aizawa, wincing when it landed into his slightly pinkish palm. Stepping into the circle, he rotated his arm around, feeling his sore muscles stretch and pull. I could do the superheated thing, but that would only hurt my palm more. LL Flame for my entire arm and use one for all 10%. I may lose control over them and end up using 100% of both, potentially harming everyone. Hurry up Midoriya. But if I only use 8% plus the fire jet, I may burn my palm more, and I don't want to anger Kachan further. Pulling his fist closed around the ball back, he moved his right shoulder and foot back for extra twisting momentum. Everyone got a first in each of the tests, so to ensure that I don't get last, my only choice is to. The full power of one for all filled his right arm, veins of all colors filling and surging through his arm, expanding his muscles such that it ripped his sleeves of his attire, raw power bringing the winds towards his right arm, with small rock particles lifting off the ground around him. Use 100% of one for all. The ball landed in a disappointing distance as Izuku felt his power in the right arm vanish. But, how? I'm sure I used one for all. I've erased your quirk for the time being. A rough voice turned Izuku's attention towards it, Mr. Aizawa's hair rising into the air, pupils a glowing ominous red, and his bandages weightlessly drifting around him from his neck. I wonder how you even got into UA with your disappointing quirk. I've seen what you did in the entrance exam, and that destroyed your entire right side of your body and your legs. In battle, are you gonna simply launch one large-scale attack and become crippled? Izuku noticed his jet black mask with a white slit that passed along its length, and with contours to his face laying lazily upon his chest, and with his mind racing, realized the identity of his homeroom teacher. You're the quirk nullifying hero, Eraser. You remind me of a certain hero that puts himself in constant danger to save others, not caring for your own personal safety. Mr. Aizawa's eyes of crimson pierced into his soul. You should reconsider your time you are going to spend in UA. Bandages now fluttering downwards, Mr. Aizawa shut his eyes, a look of annoyance still in his face. You can use your quirks or whatever now, they aren't even yours anyways. Chills ran down Izuku's spine. His chest took a hit and his head spun. With each breath came great effort. Did he say, "Quirks"? The air became choking as Izuku's eyes turned downwards onto the dirt. Whispers broke out, with Izuku's mind trailing away. Hands clammy, brain foggy. Aren't those people who have 2 quirks extremely rare? Those people shouldn't even exist. Izuku bent forwards in shock. You're wasting the class time. Go ahead and take your second throw. Izuku turned towards the ball, unable to find the strength to look towards his classmates. His heart pounded in his ears. How did he know? The ball slipped through his trembling hands, bouncing away from the ground, rolling forward. Hurry up! Izuku fell forwards, knees driven into the ground, his vision in a blur as his body shook. Once again, the ball rolled out of his grasp. I can't. Disqualified for taking too long. Next. Fearful gazes and spiteful glances bore into Izuku as he walked back out of the Akopal compounds as harsh whispers resounded back and forth. Izuku watches from afar as his classmates play and run in the fields. This is Katsuki's hero agency. A small blonde leads a small band through the fields of grass. Kachan, may I join you all? A sparkling, wide-eyed Izuku called out to his friend. No, you can't, because you don't even have a quirk. Izuku shuffled on, his head heavy. What can you do, Deku? Indeed, history can repeat itself. Darkness grew within his heart. Nothing has changed since the days of him being quirkless. Izuku landed upon a nearby bench, taking a rest from his world of emotional pain. Closing his eyes, he let his heart out through his tears. I'm not a monster. Hey, you all right? A ragged, chilling yet somewhat comforting whisper floated into his dark world. Izuku ranted and raved his heart out towards the kind stranger between sobs and running tears. Looking up through blurring tears, he felt a wrong presence beside him, yet so welcoming. A face so pale, with chapped lips and almost bloodshot eyes and a bush of white hair was beside him, looking onto him with concerned eyes, if not disturbing. He wore a dark-colored hoodie, seemingly adding to his shadiness, yet he seemed to share Izuku's burden. Albeit all these repulsive physical traits, he felt reassured that someone cared for him. He felt warm inside. He felt better off. He felt as if the world was not such an unkind place. Just let it out. Izuku cried his worries out, tears falling and rolling down his face, held back angry tears from being expelled, even though it was his first day, dripped down relentlessly. Held back tears of being ostracized and isolated and gossiped about like his old life, ran downwards. After what seemed like long while, his feelings towards the world died down, his hatred diminished, as a strangely unnerving yet reassuring arm rested upon his shoulders. 4 fingers stroked his shoulder, relaxing him. In this world of heroes, there will always be unfairness. Unfairness towards villains and even heroes themselves. He glanced upwards towards the kind stranger, and saw his bleached face of understanding. Maybe you're a monster, but you can fit in with us, a family of all monsters. Izuku's eyes widened in interest and curiosity, but a doubt formed within his heart. This world ain't perfect, and us outcasts aren't welcome either. Join me in my little family of outcasts, eh? What do you say? An unnatural gnawing urge to say yes strangled his thoughts, yet deep down, he knew it might be wrong. Deep down, he felt that his offer was a tad dangerous. Deep down, he knew once he said yes, he may not back out of it. Shadowy doubts clawed within his mind, and a dilemma ensued, possibilities and outcomes flowing. His fingers played and danced with themselves. He took one last look at those red eyes. I think I have to go home and think about it. The stranger reached into his pocket, and retrieved a white card with something scribbled onto it. A flash of disappointment caressed his glimmering face under the shadow of the hoodie. All right, but when you want to join us, you would know where to find us. The man in the black hoodie stood up, and took his leave. In the sunlight of the park, he really stood out as the darkness in the light of the green. Hey mister, before you leave, may I ask of your name? Seemingly intrigued, the lanky man turned back towards Izuku, still sitting on the bench, a spark of interest in his eyes. Shigaraki Tamura, my friend. The lanky man in black stared down upon Izuku, his eyes cold and relentless. searching for a point of weakness on Izuku's stoic and determined facade. "And why are you back here early? If you can't control your quirks properly, they are not yours. If they aren't yours, then make them yours effectively with the time given from expulsion." Izuku looked up towards the taller right into his eyes, face in defiance. Whispers broke out in the once silent class atmosphere, as if being gossiped about throughout the entire way to school and being avoided now and then was not bad enough. "Aren't you all supposed to train each student in their quirk mastering? Not to expel them and get them to learn them on their own without guidance? Mr. Aizawa, I want to be a hero too." Mr. Aizawa's face contorted in disgust, his eyes suddenly taking on a distant look, seemingly haunted by something he remembered. "I'm walking through the door like a normal person." A commanding yet reassuring voice exploded from the doorway of the classroom as the large door of classroom 1A rattled open, revealing an overly muscular man with his symbolic smile clad in red, with very American heroic-style design on it, which made his bulging physique even more defined and chiseled, his cape flowing like a dragon before him. "All Might!" Furious whispers and cries of surprise and joy lifted up into the atmosphere of the classroom. Mr. Aizawa was apparently forgotten, eye twitching in annoyance from the cut-in from All Might. "Wow, All Might is Tay, he looks even more like a top hero." The gargantuan man in red stood behind the podium, adopting his signature pose. Hands on his hips, feet apart, and a perpetual fearless smile. The symbol of peace. "Today for class, All Might, I'm not done yet." The man in black shifted such that he faced the much larger hero eye to eye, staring upwards towards the shadow of his eyes in irritation, his arms folded, assuming an authoritative position. "Fine then, Midoriya. Prove yourself in this battle training today then, if not, I will personally take action against you." Mr. Aizawa stormed out of the class, bandages trailing behind him. "So this is your way of showing kindness, Aizawa?" All Might murmured to himself with only Izuku nearby enough to hear, still in his heroic pose, unaffected by the slight commotion and interruption, which was to both parties. "So as I was saying, today we will begin with foundational heroic studies, through battle." The massive man then flipped a switch from under the pedestal and then gestured towards the back of the classroom in one swift movement, which then began whirring to life as metal racks started to extend from the walls, revealing cubic spaces covered with a glass plate containing a case with a number engraved on its casing. "And to do this, we have prepared your very own hero gear that you have requested and designed yourselves." Chatter and excitement erupted within the class. "Get changed into your gear and proceed to Grounds B." With all their equipment, the new heroes were all set and ready. Izuku's gear was of green woven carbon nanotube, made to withstand heat, with a V-neck-like line-porous black glassy tube running through his collar and converging upon his chest, similar to Endeavor's design, but did not extend downwards. A black metal collar guard was fit behind the glass tubes, with glass tubes in a ring around the shoulder and armpit. Large reinforced gleaming carbon gauntlets covered his forearms, with streamlined jet hole patterns on the surface of the gauntlets, with chinks at the wrists for movements, while a support built-in helped to absorb shock. With black titanium alloy boots extending and guarding from the knees and ending in a tapered foot, it contained spaces in its structure as well to unleash fire. Izuku was ready to reclaim his position as a monster. Allow yourself to feel all your powers flowing through you, feel them. He took a step out into the bright sunlight at the end of the dark of the tunnel that led to Grounds B. Tamura and several others charged at him, looking eager to tear him apart and disintegrate him. His eyes took a glance at his flashy classmates, his acquaintances. He did not need friends, he only needed Tamura and his band of outcasts. Your quirks aren't tools, they are a part of you, so use them like how you would walk, accept them because they are a part of you. A fist smashed against his chest, knocking wind out of his lungs as Izuku's mind recalled his childhood. It's your power, isn't it? Tamura stood over him, reaching down and offering a hand of 4 fingers towards him. Izuku clenched his fist, feeling the hardness of his gauntlets pressing back against his fingers, as Tamura's voice echoed through his mind time and time again. All Might's voice resounded through the battlegrounds, clear and still reassuring, even throughout the briefing. In this exercise, lots will be drawn to form teams of 2, and lots drawn again to determine which team would be the villain team and hero team. So basically, it would be a 2 versus 2 matchup within a building. All Might swished his arms towards the 2 boxes at his side, drawing attention to them. And because of the random occurrence of villain attacks, random teams may be formed also, so you cannot choose your teams. In fact, many villain works are held indoors instead of out, thus this exercise will be conducted indoors. So, the villains would be lurking within the top story of the building guarding a nuclear weapon of mass destruction. The heroes would need to infiltrate the building and disable the weapon by wrapping it in this capture tape. This exercise would be graded. All Might then retrieved a basket and took out a spool of red and white diagonally alternating striped tape. Does that answer all your questions? The answer from the class was a cheering yes. Izuku's heart beat anticipation in what was to come. Alone. Now let us get started, class. Team A versus Team B. Students, take your positions. Ochako and Izuku, Team A, were up against Shoto and Katsuki. Team B and those match up, with Team A as the heroes and Team B as the villains. Ochako looked on at Izuku with wide eyes, looking at his now unnervingly strong set eyes. Hey. Izuku paid no attention towards her, lost within his world of recollections. Aren't you staring at the map a little too hard? Ochako poked his shoulder, seemingly unaffected nor fearful of him. Izuku's concentration broke, with him turning towards his teammate in a tight bodysuit, with the bell ringing abruptly, signaling the start of the exercise. I'll handle Kachan, you can stay behind, supporting if necessary. Ochako turned to him to reply, her mouth open, but Izuku had already slipped through a window into the building. Izuku ghosted through the rows and columns of corridors of gray walls, lights borderline dim, senses on high alert, turning his head. From time to time on the slightest noise, it's too quiet, Kachan would be calling me out now, perhaps. Right here, Deku, feeling the rush of one for all instinctively kicking in, flowing through his body in a series of green veins shimmering to life. Explosions booming from behind his right, his mind raced through memories from his training with Tamura and Endeavor, their voices meshing into one. Never hesitate, Izuku. Feeling the singe of heat and rushing air tingling his hair, Izuku adopted a stance for balance, his right foot sliding backwards and off the ground, his torso twisting for balance and chest bending down as he lashed out backwards, smashing Katsuki as he raised his grenade gauntlet-covered arms almost immediately to guard, in a reverse roundhouse, sending scratching to a halt on the ground as Katsuki stopped his own fall. I'm ready, Kachan. Izuku stood defiant against his opponent, Katsuki. Acrid smell of smoke wafted throughout the gray corridors as Katsuki's hands crackled and flared to life with vermilion abandon in a spray of sparks. Deku. The air rocked with reverberations of explosions, with Katsuki blasting himself towards Izuku, closing the distance between them in mere moments, roaring blazes behind him propelling him forwards, eyes wide in rage. How did someone whom he had trampled upon surpass him in an instant? How dare he hide his quirk, even from him, his once close friend whom he had grown up with? Green electricity bolted across the surface of Izuku's armor, with Izuku moving and reacting at significant speeds, even for superhero standards. Ducking down to avoid an incoming fiery right arm which singed his hair, Izuku lunged forwards beneath and away from his quirk towards Katsuki's, closing a right fist for an uppercut and shifting his foot stance to balance. Smash! The blurred towards Katsuki's chest in a flash of green bolts, cracking against it, knocking his momentum off and sending him flying back to where he came from, the ground, where he landed right back up, on his feet. Shit. If it wasn't for the body armor, I would be done for. Izuku, seeing the opening, rocketed forwards in a series of clanks with impressive speeds, closing the gap between them instantly, with one gauntleted fist honed into his former friend's chest. Katsuki's eyes widening, in shock of Izuku's speed, had barely enough time to raise his own gauntleted arms to guard against the crushing blow, with him skidding backwards in a defensive stance to compensate for its force. Izuku's began his relentless onslaught, pulling back his right fist as soon as it collided, and cocking his left side of his body forwards to launch another in the form of a left-handed punch, further forcing the blonde to move backwards and continually guard himself. Allowing his body to carry forth his momentum, turning his left foot almost horizontally, he spun his body clockwise, feeling the speed and rush of his momentum and one for all empowering his abilities, his right foot raised with his upper body bent down to allow the reverse roundhouse to smash against the green grenade gauntlets as his right foot collided against them in a spinning motion, knocking Katsuki off balance with its force and falling into the air. Landing his right foot onto the ground, a left foot lashed out inwards, his other foot repositioning for balance, with Izuku twisting his body to increase force and speed, carrying the momentum of the previous attack, swinging towards the once aggressor and colliding against a last-moment saving guard of his green gauntlet which had little effect in stopping his fall and recoil, but dampened its power and smashing effect. The green-haired individual stood over the fatigued one on the ground, panting, green sparks fading and crackling to nothing. 3 seconds. You really caught me off guard right there, Deku. Katsuki stood back up with significant effort, eyes glowering, breaths heavy and deep. Now where is your fire, Deku? Bursting forth from his position, with the eruption of flames behind, Katsuki, like an enraged demon, rushed towards Izuku. Izuku, with familiar viridian sparking veins of green spreading across his body, feeling the strength and power it gave, leapt backwards quickly, avoiding the downward smash of his opponent's gaunt. The other, landing upon his feet and bracing in anticipation of recoil, swung a gauntlet to face Izuku, the other seemingly pulling a pin atop the metal of his gauntlets. Die! Searing light and torrents of roaring fire blasted towards his rival, sending Katsuki buckling backwards from its recoil, shockwaves reverberating throughout the enclosed space and floor, singing winds blasting through the enclosed area, sweeping across the battlefield and smashing columns of gray smoke and debris particles filled the air as silent gloom settled upon the first floor, as a droning rumbling ensued. Bakugo, that was extremely dangerous. The gray of the smoke cleared, leaving a gaping hole on the wall of the building where sunlight invaded into the dim of the building. If you do that one more time, I will end the exercise and you will lose. Katsuki winced. His trump card had taken its toll on his own arm. Yet Izuku escaped. Was he looking down on him? Launching such an attack indoors would defeat the purpose of defending the stronghold, no matter villain or hero. What was he thinking? Deku, I'm coming for you. Izuku ghosted through the gray corridors, taking the opportunity under the cover of the smoke and explosion to search for his objective. Now where was the staircase? Frosty white rolled across the ground before him with a crinkling resonance as crystalline ice jet and slashed into the air as they raced towards Izuku's back, eager to remove chunks of flesh from their target. With a blur of white in his peripheral V-zone, Izuku leapt away, trailing an arching and fraying green. Turning to face his superior, Izuku scowled, meeting with a glare equally as cold as his icy projection. You are nothing but inferior, Izuku. Uraraka is down, Midoriya. Your pride befalls you. And as my father will fall before it, as will you. Shoto's eyes blazing with cold hatred, as crystalline projections sprouted from around his foot, racing forth in spears while pristine yet dangerously glittering crystals materialized within the air, ready to strike down its target. Izuku, with sparking green, stomped on the ground with his right foot, sending shockwaves rippling across the surface of the metallic floor. And small gusts of wind, smashing the icicles growing towards him and halting the approach of the ice shards with a loud thud, denting the ground beneath slightly. Spotting the look of surprise on his face, Izuku, with the foot he had stomped with, propelled himself forwards, closing their distances instantly as he cocked back a left arm and moved his right side forwards for a smashing strike. Pillars of ice ascended from below in front of his opponent, chiming like cracking glass and cold, as Izuku brought forwards a left fist, stopping his onslaught as the ice decimated, absorbing shock and disappearing into a frigid cloud. Ice blew forth from Shoto as he rode on its wave, creating space between the two again, catching Izuku's booted foot within its prison. There you are, Deku, a brash, familiar voice echoed through the floor. Katsuki was here. Izuku hammered down with his right metal fist upon the ice that trapped him, freeing his foot, and turning around to his back to see a fuming, almost maniacal Katsuki glowering at him through black eye holes in his mask. With Katsuki at his front and Shoto at his back, there was no more escape or opportunities to. You bastard, can't deny that. Speed and strength electrified Izuku's body as green bolts lashed out from his body, empowering his reaction speeds and ability to jump dodge a raging plume of orange and vermilion destruction launched from the blonde, winds tearing through the vicinity. Jagged crystals plowed and chimed with frosty danger toward his landing location, catching Izuku's metal boot in its icy grasp as Izuku landed. A barrage of explosions came on his right, with Katsuki rocketing towards his victim at full speed. At his left, another series of icy daggers trained on lacerating him. I don't even have time to stomp. Tingling heat surged forth from within his body, the familiar warmth of it spreading throughout his body as embers ignited in him, defrosting his foot from its prison, heat shimmering from his body. Please stop it, Kachan. The green-haired boy shouted, desperation in his tears as he stood between the explosive demon, in the form of a child, and the battered kid behind him, scorched all over from the demon's strength. If you continue doing this, I'll never forgive you. The demon of blonde hair clasped his fist into his palm, crackling with sparks as a malicious grin spread across his face. And what can you do, Deku? You don't even have a quirk. The cruel figure stepped forward, readying his hand for a blast to his face, palm already charged with a vermilion glow, sparks spraying off its surface as the grin became even wider still. Look, you made him cry. I won't let you do so any further. Izuku stuttered, tears of dread pooling from his eyes. Still, he steeled himself for the incinerating blast, his eyes wrought with determination. Look who's talking, Deku. Sparks shot out the aggressor's hand as yellow and white of explosions launched from its master. Today was going to be different. Today was the day he held his ground. Today was the day Katsuki fell. Iron tears streaming from his eyes, Izuku felt the rush of heat surge through his body, tingling his every pore as heat exuded, with the air trembling around his being. With his hair erupting into green-tinged flames, a small Katsuki's face turned from menace to confusion. An inferno ensued as flames engulfed the entirety of the duo, roaring around and alongside Izuku, tongues of singing demise licking the air from the ground around him, arid and heated winds billowing. Today is the day you stop, Kachan. Izuku took a step forth, eyes streaming with molten tears quickly evaporating as the cage of flames closed in towards the now afraid Katsuki, incinerating the boy as Izuku's head throbbed, world falling into darkness. Katsuki's explosions closed in, its roar and yellow fire stretching across the fabric of time, with the icicles growing and crystallizing off the ground at paces such that it was beautiful, its chime and crinkling echoing. I don't want this to happen again. I don't want Kachan to get hurt again. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. Izuku's heat died down, losing all will to fight, tears trailing down his face from closed eyes as he felt the singe of heat and bite of ice rumbled beneath Uraraka's frozen feet as dust began to drift down from above. With the weapon almost within her grasp of 5 meters away, Uraraka felt the hold of ice weakening, excitement building within her as the prospect of winning came once more into view. The tower rumbled yet again, loosening the crystal prison around her feet as it began to crack and give under the tremors from below. The signs of the battle beneath, cascading down on her through dust. She hoped Izuku was okay. Even though he had changed much for the worse within 1 week. Even though he ditched her to solo fight the duo. The strongest within the class. With yet another rumble, the ice around her boots and legs gave enough leeway for her to slide out of them, albeit with difficulty as she struggled with anticipation growing within her chest. As seconds turned into eternity, the deafening silence turned into panic droplets rolling down her forehead. She struggled yet, her left leg almost free from its boot. And with great effort, her foot was free of its prison. Now all she needed was her right foot to be free. Straining against the hold of her boot, and with the additional strength of her left foot, she yanked her right leg upwards, attempting to free it. Foreign footsteps echoed through the oppressive silence and dim lights of the second floor. Uraraka was hysterical inside as she glacked around frantically, her heart exploding in her ears as her pants and grunts grew louder. Her right foot was growing cold. Or yet, the air was getting cold. Katsuki stormed through the second level, oblivious to the cacophony of echoes his boots made against the floor. Why did Izuku suddenly give up? Why did he choose to get hit? Fuming, his footsteps grew faster still, masking the grunts and pants of effort of someone. The timer was not up, yet Izuku chose to lose. Where was his fire quirk even? Why did he choose not to use it? Arriving at the weapon he was supposed to protect, a wide-eyed and panicking Uraraka was seen removing her right foot from their icy encasing. Katsuki's heart skipped several beats, his rage building within his palms and heart firing up as Uraraka stepped forth, scampering with her capture tape around the weapon. Blasting forth, the wind screaming within his ears, Uraraka completed her round. At once, the broadcast system flared to life. Hero Team Victory. I can't do this anymore, Tamura. I don't think I'll ever be like you all. Tamura's bloodshot eyes twitched dangerously under the fingers of his mask glove thing. Why do the things I forget come back to me? Izuku clenched his fists in frustration, his teeth gnawing down in anguish in the spotlight of a dangling lamp of a corner bar of the street. The glasses lined up in front of him glinting with the ghosts of his own emotions. Why do the things I choose to forget haunt me? Tamura stared at him, seemingly thinking up of a reply, a solution to Izuku's weakness. He had known of his hesitation, and of his flashbacks in the recent school test event thing. He wanted to give up on Izuku and his consistent whining and complaining, ever since he came to their bar every day for the past week, ranting to him, sickening. But Izuku was too much of an asset with far too much potential for him to give up. He would make a great villain for his mentor. Tamura let out a sigh through his teeth. It was either going to ruin his plans or build him and secure it. It was a gamble and he had to take a chance. Tamura did not like to gamble. As he contemplated rotating back and forth on a stool at the countertop with his weary head resting on a hand, Izuku stared downwards into his lap. Maybe I'm just not cut out to be a hero. Even with Tamura's help, when it counts, I still hesitate. On the fields of justice, if the villain was someone I knew, wouldn't that make me a liability? Izuku mumbled under his breath, his brows furrowed in deep thought, face contorted in frustration. He could think of anything why but not how. Why did I remember Kachan at that point of time? Shut up. Sorry, perhaps both of you need a drink to calm yourselves down. Wisps of deep violet tendrils that made up hands floated 2 glasses of soda onto the countertop, the clinking signaling Kurogiri's existence in the bar. It may be beneficial for us if you include him in tomorrow's VCT, provided he pulls through and makes a decision for our cause. What visit? And what's their cause? Izuku listened in as he sipped from his glass, the sparkling sweetness running through his mouth indeed calming him down, to form rational thoughts. Yeah, but if he doesn't, Master will not be happy, and we might lose our chance to complete our objective. Tamura fiddled with his glass, balancing it on the edge of its base, tilting its contents back and forth, watching the tiny bubbles come and go. He will have to face it eventually, Tamura. And whatever decision he makes then will be the same as the one he makes tomorrow. And if he chooses otherwise, well, there's no mo. Kurogiri lingered at the countertop, polishing several glasses, his smoky facade revealing no emotion from his gleaming eyes. Who's Nomu even? Whatever then. Come here tomorrow in the morning before 11. Bring your hero gear and don't be late. But I have school tomorrow. That's exactly the point, Izuku. A chill set into the dim bar as Tamura's eyes met his, an unsettling smile creeping into his eyes. Thanks for watching.